25 insane facts about Singapore you never knew. Number 1 will blow your mind. Number 25, Singapore recognizes 4 official languages: English, Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil. Street signs, government documents, and public announcements appear in all 4. English serves as the common working language, but walk through different neighborhoods and the dominant tongue shifts entirely. This linguistic juggling act reflects a country deliberately built on multi-ethnic coexistence, where no single group is allowed to dominate the national identity. Number 24, Singapore famously banned the import and sale of chewing gum in 1992 after authorities grew tired of finding it stuck on subway doors, elevator buttons, and apartment keyholes. The ban was so strict that travelers could be fined for carrying gum into the country. A small exception was eventually made for therapeutic and dental gum, but only if purchased from a pharmacist who records the buyer's name. Number 23, Singapore measures just 50 kilometers from east to west and 27 kilometers from north to south, making it one of the smallest countries in the world. You can drive the entire length of the island in roughly 45 minutes if traffic cooperates. Despite its tiny footprint, the country packs nearly 6 million people into this space, giving it one of the highest population densities on the planet. Number 22, before purchasing a car in Singapore, you must first buy a certificate of entitlement, a government-issued permit that alone can cost over $100,000. Add the vehicle price, registration fees, and import taxes, and a modest Toyota sedan can easily exceed $150,000. The system was designed to limit the number of cars on the island's congested roads, and it has made Singapore one of the most expensive places on earth to own a vehicle. Number 21, Changi Airport has been voted the world's best airport so many times that it essentially owns the title. Inside you will find a butterfly garden with over 1,000 free-flying butterflies, a rooftop swimming pool, a sunflower garden, a movie theater showing free films around the clock, and the Jewel, a massive indoor waterfall surrounded by a 4-story forest. Some travelers deliberately book long layovers just to explore it. Number 20, Singapore enforces some of the strictest anti-littering laws in the world. First-time offenders face fines of up to $1,000, and repeat offenders can be sentenced to community service wearing a bright vest that publicly identifies them as litterers. Spitting, feeding pigeons, and failing to flush a public toilet are also finable offenses. The result is a city so spotlessly clean it almost feels artificial. Number 19, Singapore's hawker centers are massive open-air food courts where dozens of independent stalls serve dishes from every corner of Asia for as little as $2 or $3. The food is so exceptional that a chicken rice stall in Chinatown was awarded a Michelin star, making it one of the cheapest Michelin-starred meals anywhere on Earth. Hawker culture is so central to Singaporean identity that UNESCO recognized it as intangible cultural heritage. Number 18, Singapore did not gain independence through revolution or negotiation. In 1965, the Malaysian parliament voted to expel Singapore from the Federation, effectively kicking the tiny island out of its own country. Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew wept on national television as he announced the separation. Singapore suddenly found itself an independent nation without natural resources, without a military, and without any certainty that it could survive. Number 17, Singapore sits almost exactly on the equator, with temperatures hovering around 31 degrees Celsius year-round and humidity rarely dropping below 80%. To compensate, virtually every indoor space is air-conditioned to intensely cold levels. Shopping malls, offices, and public transport feel like refrigerators. Lee Kuan Yew once called air conditioning the most important invention in history for making development in the tropics possible. Number 16, Singapore has virtually no natural freshwater sources and has historically depended on Malaysia for most of its water supply, a vulnerability the government considers a matter of national security. To reduce this dependency, Singapore has invested billions in desalination plants, rainwater collection, and a recycled water system called AnyWater that purifies treated sewage back into drinking water. Tap water in Singapore has partially come from recycled waste. Number 15, Gardens by the Bay features 18 towering super trees, vertical gardens standing between 25 and 50 meters tall, built from steel frames covered in over 162,000 living plants. At night, they come alive with a synchronized light and music show that transforms the waterfront into a futuristic spectacle. The trees also serve a functional purpose, collecting rainwater, generating solar energy, and ventilating the conservatories below. Number 14, the rooftop of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel features a 150-meter-long infinity pool perched on a sky park 200 meters above street level, connecting three massive towers at the top. The pool appears to have no edge, creating the illusion that you could swim straight off the building and into the skyline. It is the largest rooftop infinity pool in the world and has become one of the most photographed spots in all of Asia. Number 13, when Singapore was expelled from Malaysia in 1965, it was a tiny, impoverished island with no natural resources, rampant unemployment, overcrowded slums, and racial tensions threatening to tear the society apart. Within a single generation, it transformed into one of the wealthiest nations on Earth, with a GDP per capita exceeding that of the United States, Germany, and Japan. No country in modern history has risen this far this fast. Number 12, Singapore administers judicial caning as a mandatory punishment for certain offenses, including vandalism, drug trafficking, and sexual assault. The punishment involves being struck on the bare buttocks with a thick rattan cane by a trained officer. The pain is reportedly so severe that many recipients lose consciousness. The most internationally famous case involved an American teenager named Michael Fay, who was caned in 1994 for vandalizing cars. Number 11, since independence, Singapore has increased its total land area by roughly 25% through aggressive land reclamation projects, literally building new ground by dumping sand and soil into the sea. Entire neighborhoods, the airport, and large sections of the waterfront sit on land that did not exist 50 years ago. Singapore imports enormous quantities of sand from neighboring countries, and the demand has been so intense that some nations have banned sand exports to it. Number 10, Singapore maintains one of the strictest drug enforcement regimes in the world. Possession of more than 15 grams of heroin or 500 grams of cannabis carries a mandatory death sentence. Signs at the airport explicitly warn arriving passengers that drug trafficking is punishable by death. Despite international criticism, Singapore has shown no indication of softening its position, arguing that the policy is a core reason for its low crime rate. Number 9, Singapore operates the world's first nocturnal zoo, the Night Safari, where visitors observe over 900 animals from 100 species in their natural nighttime behavior under carefully designed dim lighting. Open only after dark, the park uses subtle moonlight simulation to allow human eyes to adjust while keeping animals comfortable. Predators hunt, prey forage, and creatures that are completely invisible during daylight hours come alive in the darkness. Number 8, Singapore's public housing system, managed by the Housing and Development Board, houses roughly 80% of the entire population. Each residential block is subject to strict ethnic quotas that ensure a mix of Chinese, Malay, Indian, and other residents in every neighborhood. The policy was designed to prevent the formation of ethnic enclaves and force daily interaction between communities. No other country on Earth engineers social integration this deliberately. Number 7, Sentosa, now a glittering resort island filled with luxury hotels, theme parks, and beaches, was once known as Pulau Belakang Mati, meaning Island of Death Behind. During World War II, British forces built extensive fortifications and tunnels across the island. When Japanese troops invaded Singapore in 1942, fierce fighting took place here. The tunnels still exist beneath the manicured golf courses and swimming pools that cover the island today. Number 6, despite English being an official language, Singaporeans have developed their own Creole called Singlish, a fast-paced mix of English, Malay, Hokkien, Cantonese, and Tamil grammar structures. Sentences end with distinctive particles like la, lor, and me that convey subtle emotional nuances untranslatable into standard English. The government has repeatedly tried to discourage Singlish in favor of proper English, but the population stubbornly refuses to give it up. Number 5, during World War II, Japanese forces conquered Singapore in just 7 days, despite the British garrison being significantly larger. The fall of Singapore in February 1942 was the largest British military surrender in history. During 3 years of brutal occupation, tens of thousands of Chinese civilians were systematically massacred in what became known as the Suk Ching Purge. The trauma of that betrayal and vulnerability shaped Singapore's obsession with self-reliance and military readiness. Number 4, Lee Kuan Yew served as Prime Minister from 1959 to 1990 and is widely credited with single-handedly transforming Singapore from a failing post-colonial backwater into a global powerhouse. He crushed corruption, enforced strict social discipline, attracted massive foreign investment, and built a world-class education system. His methods were authoritarian and heavily criticized, but the results are undeniable. Few individuals in modern history have shaped a nation this completely. Number 3, despite its gleaming modernity and economic success, Singapore ranks consistently low on global press freedom indexes. The government maintains tight control over media, public assembly requires permits, and defamation lawsuits have been used against political opponents. Online speech is monitored, and the Protection from Online Falsehoods Act gives authorities broad power to order removal of content deemed false. Singapore's social contract trades certain freedoms for stability and prosperity. Number 2, Singapore has no oil, no gas, no minerals, no significant agriculture, and barely enough land to house its population. It imports virtually everything, including water, food, energy, and building materials. The only resource the country ever truly possessed was its people, and the government invested everything into education, training, and discipline to turn human capital into the engine of one of the most remarkable economic transformations in modern history. Number 1, when Singapore was expelled from Malaysia in 1965, virtually no one believed the tiny island could survive as an independent nation. It had no army, no resources, hostile neighbors, racial divisions, and massive unemployment. Experts predicted collapse within years. Instead, Singapore defied every expectation and built one of the richest, safest, cleanest, and most efficient societies on Earth in less than a single human lifetime. It is the greatest underdog story a country has ever written.